Grade 11s, so today we are kind of coming to the end of our notes as we're coming to the end of the digestive system. So we've talked about mechanical digestion, we've talked about chemical digestion, we've talked about tons of enzymes. We have a good understanding of how the nutrients that we take in are broken down in our body. Everything was just absorbed in the small intestine, so we're really coming to the end of things here, getting to the large intestine, including the rectum and the anus. So what the large intestine is in charge of, its big thing is that it absorbs water, salts, and some vitamins. So the biggest thing is that that chyme that's moved through your small intestine, it's gone through all of those, I think it was like 6 meters we talked about, something like that. So it goes through that 6 meters of small intestine, all of the vitamins, nutrients, minerals, all of those things are absorbed through those little villi. We talked about the surface area of the small intestine. And so finally that chyme enters the large intestine. So this right here, let me get my mouse working. This right here is the entrance into the large intestine. This big chunk on this diagram here is the large intestine. So there's kind of different sections that we're going to look at. So we have the cecum, which is this area. We have the colon, which is this area. We have the rectum here, and then the anus is the exit out of the digestive tract. So let's talk about these different things. We'll start with the cecum. So it's slightly below where the large intestine meets the small intestine. So we can see right here that there's this kind of this chunk right here that's below. And so this is just the area, like I say, below the small intestine. So here the small intestine enters into the large intestine. This specific part below that entranceway is called the cecum, and it has this little, it's called a variform appendage, and we usually just call that the appendix. Okay, so this is, you might have heard of the appendix before if someone has appendicitis. This is when this little vestigial, why is my mouse doing that? There we go. This little vestigial organ, they don't really know what it's for, but it can get infected. And then so some of the liquid or some of the material from in the cecum is in that appendix and it actually bursts. And so all of the material that is coming into the cecum via the small intestine, so whatever is left over is in there, it bursts, and then that is leaking into your body, and like, that's not good. That's the stuff we're getting rid of through our large intestine. We want to expel that from the body, so having that leaking into the body is really bad. So it can be removed. There's no harmful consequences to having your appendix removed other than you have to go through surgery, but it doesn't really add anything to the digestive tract. And so this cecum is just kind of where material first enters and is considered to be in the large intestine. Okay, so we'll look a little bit more at the different sections of the colon and then into looking at the rectum and the anus. So the colon has 4 sections: the ascending, the the transverse, the descending, and the sigmoid colon. So the ascending colon, you can see right here, you'll notice there's a little spelling mistake there. Put the N in transverse. You can see it's transverse here. So anyways, the ascending colon travels up the right side of the body, so ascending, going up. The transverse colon travels across. The descending colon travels down the left side of the body, and the sigmoid colon leads to the rectum. So that's just this little bit right here. It's not written on our diagram, but this section here is the sigmoid colon. So in all of these areas, all that's happening is water absorption. And we talked about, back here, water, salts, and some vitamins. So the biggest thing is you are absorbing all that water back into your body. So most water absorption doesn't happen in the small intestine, it happens in the large intestine. And so that's trying to bring as much water back into the body, because we've talked about before, we're made up so much of water. It's between all of our cells need it to function, cushions organs, different things like that. So again, the job of this colon is to take in as much water as it can. Okay, so after our material has been slowly, for a lack of better term, drying out or being reabsorbed into the rectum here, between the rectum and the anus is where defecation or expulsion of feces occurs. So after all of that indigestible material, so some fibers are indigestible, some materials just in food are not digestible, that all the water's been absorbed out of those and they are now sitting in the rectum. So after the feces enter the rectum via peristalsis, so again we've talked about peristalsis in the esophagus, there's also peristalsis happening, that's how we move the material through the large intestine. So it's moved into the rectum via peristalsis, and these rectal walls right in here expand. So when there's expansion of the rectal walls, we know, or our body is alerted, that we need to defecate. And so after that happens, there is sphincters that are located in the anus, and those sphincters will relax, and so they kind of do a relax and contract so that feces can be expulsed. Anyways, you can poop, okay? So after all that, we've had materials moving through, water being absorbed, feces are what is into the rectum wall, or the rectal wall expands, alerting our bodies that we need to defecate, and then those sphincters relax and the body rids itself of waste material. So that's all we're going to cover for today. We're almost at the end here. We only have a few slides left. We're just going to talk a little bit more about the accessory organs and what the liver does, the gallbladder and the pancreas a little bit more in depth, and how the pancreas and the enzymes need perfect conditions to work. We've touched on all of these things just a little bit, but we're going to go and finish off with that more in depth. So you've gone from a point of, wow, a lot of slides we've covered. If we look back at this diagram, we know that it was pretty intense. So we've talked about food coming into the mouth, going down into the stomach, through the esophagus. Here again we have our small intestine with the duodenum right here. We're going to look at the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder a little bit more next class. We went into the small intestine where everything was absorbed. Here we can see that we have the cecum. This is our variform appendix. Usually we just call it an appendix. So the chyme travels through here. Water's being absorbed, gets to the sigmoid colon, into the rectum, where it's now considered feces, and the rectal wall expands so that our body is alerted that we need to get everything out through the anal canal. Okay, so again, if we come and look back even further at this diagram, which is my favorite diagram, we can really see mechanical digestion. Here's our chemical digestion through the different things. This is the intestine, so this part in here is the small intestine, this part is the large intestine, there's the little appendix, and then defecation at the end here. So anyways, we will continue talking about these guys, these accessory organs, right here on Monday.